Good evening. I call this regular meeting to order at 6:34 p.m. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Huerta.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Hands over our heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So at this point, we'll do a roll call. Commissioner Barantes?
Here.
Commissioner Cabot?
Here.
Commissioner Huerta?
Here.
I am present. And Chair, she is not with us today because she is under the weather or otherwise can't get here. Okay. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda order. Are there any objections to the agenda order? If there is no objections, state hearing. Yeah, hearing none, the agenda order is approved. Okay. So now we will turn to a few announcements by the Community Services Manager, Matthew Morales-Stevens.
Sorry, I have a faulty one over here. Sorry, I guess everyone's awake now. So tonight's meeting is live streamed on Cable Channel 3 and our online platforms. If you wish to address the Community Services Commission during tonight's meeting, we request that you please complete a speaker's card and hand it to the clerk, Mei Ling Sui. When speaking, please state your name for the record. If you wish to be added to the distribution list to receive Community Services Commission agendas, please email your request to cscommission@sgch.org.
So now it's time for public comments. This is the time set aside for members of the public to address the Community Services Commission on items of interest that are not on the agenda but are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the Community Services Commission cannot answer any questions or take any action until such time as the matter may appear as an item on a future agenda. Mei Ling, do we have any public comments for tonight's meeting?
We do not. Sorry, we actually do. We don't have any public comment, general public comment.
Okay, great. Okay, we are on item number 3 of the agenda, action items, approval of minutes. The minutes are a record of the official actions taken at the Community Service Commission meeting on November 6, 2023. Matthew, do we have any public comments on the action item?
We do not.
The time for public comment on this item is now closed. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the Community Services Commission regular meeting from Monday, November 6, 2023?
Also move.
Second.
So motion passed by a vote of 2.
I'll be taking the vote. Commissioner Barantes,
Aye.
Commissioner Cabot,
Aye.
Commissioner Dong,
Aye.
Vice Chair Sher. Chair Commissioner Huerta.
Aye.
Motion passed by a vote of 4 ayes, 0 nays, 0 abstention, and 1 absent.
Okay, moving on to item number 4, discussion items, holiday tree lighting and turkey trot event recap. Okay, so we do have La Laguna Playground update as a discussion item. we would like someone to make a motion to skip this discussion to May.
I make a motion that we table the discussion for A on the La Laguna Playground update to May meeting.
I'll
April
second that
meeting.
motion.
April or May?
May, please.
May.
I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Barrentes,
Aye. Okay.
Commissioner Cabot,
Aye.
Commissioner Huerta,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dong,
Aye.
Chair Share. Motion passed by a vote of 4 ayes, 0 nays, 0 abstentions, and 1 absent.
So with that, we are returning to an event recap from November.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and make the presentation. Unfortunately, Danielle could not be with us. She is under the weather today. She has prepared everything, though, for you, so I'll run through all of the information that she's prepared. You will also notice that some of the staff reports were generated by Michael Muse, our recreation supervisor. Unfortunately, he has moved on to another agency, so he's no longer with us. But luckily, Danielle was there for both events and took the lead on actually both of them. So she had all of the content there, and so we'll walk everything through tonight. So we'll start with Turkey Trot. All right. Can you go to the next slide for me? Okay. So first off, I do want to thank our commissioners that joined us today, or not today, on Turkey Trot. I think it was probably one of our biggest events in quite a few years for Turkey Trot. People seem to be pretty pleased. Obviously, I think there's some room for growth as far as attendance and how we operate the event. But I think Danielle made overall really positive changes to the event and already has quite a few in her back pocket as to how it can run smoother throughout the morning. Obviously, it's very, very early, but certainly we want people when they get there, when the sun is finally up, to really have a fantastic check-in time. So starting off with some general information on the event, we did host it at Vincent Lugo Park and in the surrounding neighborhoods on Saturday, November 18th, and it included a 1K kids fun run, 5K walk run, and a 10K run. Next slide. The registration, we did change it slightly from previous years to really make it as efficient as possible for people, so there wasn't 10 different choices for people to choose from. So the early bird rate was $35 for kids, 1K, 40, and 40 for a 5K walk, run, and 10K. And then it just went up by $10 for each of those starting in October. We did ask people to register well before the actual event. That way we could make a more accurate order prior. We've struggled for quite a few years trying to find the happy balance for everyone, right? So people tend to have a tendency to wait until the last minute to register, which means that we're either going to be over-ordering to hopefully accommodate the anticipated people that will be registering, or we're under-ordering and then shorting. So that way, everyone that registered through the 29th was guaranteed all of the items listed below. Anyone after, we would either we did order some extra so they could receive it on the day of, or if we've run through that, they already know that they would need to come and pick it up from the office later. But again, that was all information that was given to them ahead of time, so that way there were no surprises on the day of the event. Next slide. They've put together a nice little collage of some of the highlights of the event. You'll notice that there was a large white tent that was rented out. It was actually rented out because of the kind of weather that was highly not expected at all, that ended up not happening. So that we postponed the event from the Saturday to the Sunday, the 19th. So that white tent was for that purpose, but it will potentially stay for future years to come because it did create a nice gathering place and a nice central focus for that award ceremony. Again, you'll see that the check-in, the red tents in the back, was a little too close in proximity, so we'll be moving some of those locations to make it even more exciting and accessible for people. To the left of that photo is the new Run Go app. We received some really positive feedback from participants that used it. We'll be looking into how to really leverage that in the future for events, whether it's getting that information out to the public ahead of time. That way they can really trial and error with it before they actually are doing the run, and then use it, for their own pleasure outside of the event itself. There was Coffee A Go Go also present. They did quite well at the event. You'll notice that there was only the one food vendor, because of the size of the event itself doesn't necessarily warrant more than the one. Next slide, please. So the revenue that was brought in was approximately $8,800, with the total expenses around $8,400. So there was a quote unquote profit of $325. Essentially, that money just stays in the account in the case that we go in the negative for one of the events. The approximate attendance was about 400. That's not the attendance of runners, so that's the attendance of people at the actual event. So that's something to keep in mind. So we didn't take in 400 registrations. We had a title sponsor from Athens Services and then a gold sponsor from the San Gabriel Nursery and Florist. They were very quick to say yes, so we do want to give them their recognition. It didn't take too much convincing for them to sponsor this event, which is usually quite difficult for organizations to donate to an event of this size. You usually really have to get them to see the benefits, so we appreciate them providing the support. We also had raffle prizes donated by AK Fresh Roasters, Baking with Ish, La Olla, and Jasmine Creamery, and Honey and Hive, which is actually located inside of Blossom Market. Just some additional photos for your review. Next slide. Excellent. So some of the items in the event that I mentioned need some additional assistance is that check-in. So that's one thing that we've struggled with for quite a few years. The day of check-in and then the day of day of registration and day of check-in were in two very different locations, so it made it a bit difficult for people to navigate which area they were supposed to go to. So we'll be working on that to consolidate those, as well as enhancing our signage. We've noticed that when we do our A-frame signage, it's not always high enough for people to navigate over there, especially if there's a crowd of people blocking the A-frame sign, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that anyone can see it if everyone's in front of it. Danielle did a great job of putting marketing out well in advance, which is why we ended up essentially breaking even for this event, which is the entire goal. We're providing the service to the public, but we don't want the city to eat the cost of a large portion of this event. Some other key items was her ability to bring in a large amount of volunteers. So I'm sure Vice Chair Dong saw the large number of volunteers that came out and supported. That does two things. It shows their engagement to the community. We, as the department, gets additional day of assistance. And then it also just does that last loop of tying in the community, right? So they get to provide the assistance, but then they're getting their service hours, plus then they're telling their friends and family about how great this event was, and then hopefully that's helping us next year. So we're hoping that this was a positive starting point for really enhancing and growing this event from here. Be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, so I was in attendance along with one of the council members, and it was really fun. There were a lot of volunteers, like you'd mentioned. I thought the giveaways were a nice little touch. Almost everyone got something, and I think that was the idea of kind of more community engagement. Even if you didn't get a finisher medal, maybe you want something from the raffle. So one thing I would like to mention, it's maybe because I'm the kind of person who's burning the candle on both ends because I work, I'm a parent. The event had changed from Saturday to Sunday, and there was almost no communication about that. And it was really hard. I told my community members, to come out, support this event, and they didn't get any notice. I actually had a broadcast that the date had changed. So, one of the questions I had was, did anyone ask for a refund? Were there any complaints from the community members? Because it is, it's $35 to $40, but you also, as a parent, you have to carve out that morning. You might show up with your kids. Oh my gosh, there's nothing here. What do I do now? And then if they really want to attend, you just have to find another Sunday for that. So if there's a better way of messaging, and I only mention this to tie in with something like the pentathlon, right, where I think tonight is when they have a Zoom meeting for all the parents who are interested in having their kids attend the pentathlon activities in March. And the announcement for that Zoom meeting didn't come out until today. And a lot of parents are, they're commuting at 5 o'clock or 6, I think it's at 6 o'clock. So it's a little bit, if you want people to be informed and not have to ask staff questions that they've already covered in a Zoom meeting, maybe, put out that reminder a little bit earlier so that, parents are able to attend.
I just have a simple question. Was the medal that piece that said 46 and then the steps around it, or whatever, footprints around it?
It was.
That was so attractive.
Thank you. I think Danielle did a good job trying to meld some of what was done in the past with kind of how she saw it going in the future.
That's very clever and very unique, so I'm sure people appreciated it. So do you think it was a larger number this time, you said?
Yes, it was most definitely a larger participation.
Cool.
We were fortunate that most of those registrations came in well before the deadline, too.
So in terms of the turnout, how many people turned out on Sunday versus who registered on Saturday event?
That I don't have on me. I can certainly follow up and send you an email, though.
Okay, because it didn't seem like there were 400 runners that morning.
No, it wouldn't have been
Yeah.
400 runners. It would have been collectively between everyone who was present at the event, not runners.
Oh, okay, so the 400 includes volunteers then? Or am I mistaken?
It shouldn't include volunteers. It should include just
So no one showed
event
up?
goers. Yeah. So
Bystanders,
let's
okay.
say there was a child running, then their 5 family members came with them.
Got
That
it.
was included in the 400.
Right, 152 registered participants, okay.
Yeah, but the actual number of runners that came, I would need to follow up on that one. All right, so holiday tree lighting. I will preface this with saying that it was completely different than most of the other tree lightings if you've been to them in the past. So this year it was holiday tree lighting with a taste of San Gabriel. Next slide. Excuse me. So I'm sure most of the commission was aware that council and the community were requesting something bigger and better and more exciting and refreshed. So that's really what we tried to do, but make it San Gabriel, right? We can certainly emulate what other cities are doing, but then that kind of defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do if we're just duplicating another city's function. So the goals that were set forth for staff were to refresh the event, adding in new elements, maintain some of the traditional event attractions, and maintain the hometown feel. Next slide. Traditional elements that were maintained included the community performances, so you can see some of the photos. Actually, all 3 bottom photos are community groups. So in the middle is Jefferson Middle School. On the left-hand side is our Hawaiian and Polynesian dance class offered through the Community Services Office. And then on the far right is Dewey Woodcraft Rangers. And then, of course, we had the lighting of the tree with our mayor and city council, and then followed by a visit from Santa Claus, where there were the typical photos that were available to be taken. Next slide. New elements that were added was the new ornament making opportunity. Traditionally, there were the pie tins that were then hung around the fence. This year, there were the take-home plastic ornaments that were stuffed with tinsel, and then there was a string that was inside that was essentially measured to the height of the child and then put inside with the tinsel, and then tied up and ready for them to hang on their tree at home. The elevated ambiance was the lighting for the stage. So we went through a third-party contractor. Chris Hewlin, our Mission Playhouse manager, did a fantastic job communicating with the company to really put on a show, right? There was the show itself on the stage, and then they had a whole lighting show to go along with it, essentially. So all of the snowflakes that you saw on the Mission Rectory and on the kind of day of stage were all put together by that company. And then the Holiday Light Tunnel was put together by Public Works. They actually surprised us with it. It was a very pleasant surprise. And they put that together all on their own, not through a third party. So we were impressed internally that they were able to pull that off. And then the surprise snowfall. So that was one thing that we wanted it to be a surprise. We purposely did not advertise it to the community. One, because it was the first time we were doing it, right? So if for some reason, there was a power outage or something, we didn't want people being disappointed. And of course, we wanted that wow factor, right? Since we've never done it before, no one was really expecting it. And I think that was seen on people's faces, as in the middle photo on the slide. And then the trackless train was added, so that was one item that council mentioned that another city had, so we did implement that from another city, and that seemed to go well. And then the Taste of San Gabriel. Taste of San Gabriel was a little smaller than we were hoping for, but all of the businesses that participated certainly said that it was worth their while. The downside is that they ran out of food items really quickly. It was a very congested area for a very short period of time, and then all the food was gone. Taste of San Gabriel, the participating vendors were D'Ange Bakery, Jasmine Creamery, El Pavo Bakery, Paris Baguette, Bay Pokey, and Dancing Spoons. So essentially what that was is we reached out to them and said, if you can provide 1,000, 2,000 pieces of mini bites, it would be a great opportunity for you to showcase what your business has to offer, because there's a potential that the community members have no idea that you exist, even though they're in the same city that they reside in a way that's hopefully more cost effective than doing a whole social media campaign or trying to do marketing that they may not be paying attention to. So they get to taste it for free, you get to interact with the customers, and then of course the public gets to have some nice tasty treats that they don't have to pay for. Next slide. There were about 2,000 community members in attendance that night. The most popular attractions were the Santa Claus photo booth, as well as the trackless train. The surprise snow was obviously a hit. I believe it was also highlighted on the city's social media page. And then the ornaments were also very well received. Next slide. Adjustments for next year. There were quite a few things that went well, but then there were quite a few things that, with the number of people that came, we were just not anticipating at all. So next year we will know that we need to better prepare for the large turnout, especially given all of the elements that people now saw. I don't anticipate the growth stopping where it was this year. So the lines were kind of the biggest pitfall of the event, right? So for the Santa line and the trackless train, there were hefty lines. We did have to cut off the line for Santa and the trackless train before the event closed. That way people weren't waiting and then disappointed when both of the vendors had to leave. So that was the major item. We can certainly address that by doing the pre-registration like we did for the Haunted Zone. People really seemed to enjoy that. We can do ticketing on the day of. So we're open to any suggestions that the commission has on that you think would be beneficial to the community. And then we are looking at additional ways to mix things up. So we don't necessarily want to offer the exact rendition of this again next year. So maybe instead of the trackless train, we offer something else to the community. That way it continues to stay fresh and we don't have to do a complete revamp every 5 years. It's just a continually evolving and mixture of different components that leaves people excited to attend the event every year, because they never know what new and exciting thing is going to be offered. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or receive any feedback as well.
I have a couple. I wasn't able to attend, unfortunately. I'm glad it was such a success, because I knew you were going to upgrade things. Where was the light tunnel?
The light tunnel was if you were facing the stage and the mission or the mission rectory to the right-hand side.
Oh, that's that sidewalk?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was very amazing, and the trackless train seems wonderful. Instead of eliminating that, though, maybe keep it for another year or two, because people might be looking forward to it. That's just a suggestion. They might say, oh, where's the train? You know, and then in a few years, change it up, whatever that would be. But that's up to you. But it sounds like it was a real good success. Thank you for doing that.
I'd also like to make comment. Mission San Gabriel's Museum was open for that evening, and we also gave away food, big attraction, tamales, they flew. But the overall event was really great. My grandkids attended, and my daughters. It's nice to see the numbers growing more and more. Of course, my favorite year was the horse-drawn, I don't even remember, train. That was one of my favorites. But I know it's expensive, so I can understand why we want to be cost-effective, but also bring creativity to the event. The light tunnel was great, too, and it stayed up for a really long time. We always I do, because I work there, that Plaza Park is always busy with people. And a lot of people came back to take pictures after that and go through the tunnel, and Public Works did a great job. And like I said, we offered free admission to the museum and gave away tamales. It was a great opportunity for us to be able to let people know, hey, the mission's open again, the museum's open, and people walked in, and of course I got to come back with more time to really take it all in. But overall, I think it was a great event. You guys did a great job. Looking forward to next year.
I apologize, I was completely remiss in highlighting the mission. No. It was a fantastic partnership. You were certainly very receptive to all of the kind of out-of-the-box thoughts that we had, especially with kind of the large footprint that I was going to be having. So I appreciate the support from you and the mission. And we're looking forward to partnering with you again next year.
Always. Thank you.
I have one more question. How did the vendors feel? Did they feel it was worth their while to do that, or?
Yeah, they definitely felt that it was worth their while. I wasn't sure how they would respond. I think the downside is that they weren't able to be there as long as they wanted to be. So in a perfect world, they would have had their food last through the event. That way they had continuous people visiting, and they could have a bit more time to meet with them. But with the limited number of vendors, it was just a constant bombardment.
They get all hit.
People there. So that would be the.
Well, then next year you might get additional vendors that might be spread out more, and also these vendors, if they come back, might be a little more prepared. But good idea.
I was unable to attend last year's event. I did go the previous 2 years, though, and that line for Santa Claus is always so long. I wonder if you can do a postcard cutout with Santa Claus. Don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but it's basically like a wooden structure with Santa Claus somewhere in the corner, and you can put your whole family in there, and someone can go and take a picture. So if you can't afford, 30 minutes or an hour to wait for Santa Claus, you can still take a family picture. That's a low-cost way of doing it. I would assume it's low cost. I don't know how much it would cost, but it would be a one-time investment. So you could pack it up and then use it again the next year. Maybe change the year on it. Each year you're going to have a different year.
And if there's sufficient lighting, you could always put it in front of the mission doors, right there in that clearing, after the tunnel. Kind of keep the lines away from the central area. Be willing to do that.
Yeah, I managed to attend. Just had a few comments. I got there early, so I was lucky enough to hit up all the food spots before the craziness came, because sure enough, an hour later, the lines were insanely long, and I was like, wow. And I don't know if there's anything you guys can do, but it seemed really dark right there. I know they had their own lights, but it was very, very weak, and it was just a really dark area overall. So I don't know how much more you can really do, but and then as you guys mentioned, the long lines for the train and Santa. My son didn't even want to make the lines because we'd probably spend the whole time there and not do anything else. So we passed on that. The snow, that was a nice surprise, and I was going to ask if anyone knew about it, because obviously they said no. I think the bad thing about that was no one knew, and as soon as it went off, the rush over there was kind of intense. Like everyone ran, and people were kind of pushing, especially when they got in, because the snow was only so big, so everyone wants to get in. So everyone was pushing. So again, it was a nice surprise, but I think you would need at least another machine, so it's not everyone runs over there, and kind of free for all in there. I mean, it was nice though. And then that tunnel was really nice. Public Works did a really good job there. My only question is, me and my son took a little break and sat on the bench on the farthest side away from the stage over there, and it didn't seem very busy. I don't know if you'd want to change the location to maybe where the food was. But as we sat there, people would walk by, but it wasn't like a consistent stream. So maybe afterwards, other days while it was up, people were there, but it just seemed really empty while we sat there for, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes. Maybe like 5 groups went by, but that was it for the amount of people that were there. So, and then maybe a map. Was there a map of like where spots? No? Okay, because I didn't know where the train line was. I assumed I saw it. I didn't know where the line for the Santa started. I didn't even know that there was tamales because I would have went. I didn't even know you were open. So I guess if
Last minute.
Oh, really?
It's the last minute.
so if there was something to
announcement.
let us know, I guess I probably would have stopped by, but I had no idea. And yeah, the ornaments was really nice. My son enjoyed that, going there. The line, I know there was certain steps to follow. I don't know if there was any labeling. I was just kind of, so many kids, and we're just like, where do we go? And people are just going all over, so I don't know if there's a way to number the stations or something, just to make it stand out a little bit more. But, I mean, yeah, no, he enjoyed it. He was excited. And then the letters to Santa, he put a lot of thought into that. But that area as well was kind of dark as well, so more lighting there too. I would suggest if possible. But yeah, overall it was really nice. The whole train was a nice setup, and Santa was nice, obviously. But again, the lines were just really long. But I like that idea with the cutout of Santa or having another backdrop somewhere. Since I do photography, I know they have some really nice backdrops that you can add, and just kind of add props. And if someone just wants to have a family photo, they can do that as well. So.
I know a San Gabriel resident. He is retired from Disney. If you're interested in doing that kind of a cutout, I think he'd be perfect. I'll ask him and then send him to you. And the reason I thought of it is because I've been asking him to do a cutout for the mission. And so if we both tag team, maybe we can get him to do it. Like I said, he's retired from Disney and he does great work.
We would absolutely love that. That's great. Thank you. Yeah, so thank you for all of your feedback. It was certainly, we had a very limited time to pull all of it together, which I know it didn't seem like maybe a ton of changes, but the changes that we did make were significant as far as our team's time, so I appreciate the feedback, as we certainly want all of those kind of hiccups to be eliminated in future years. I know we ran out of ornaments at the end, so again, it was just a large influx of people that just we were not anticipating, and we want to be prepared for them next year so that everyone can participate in all of those activities. We will be looking at the layout of the event next year as well, most likely flipping where the archway is and where Santa was. That way the Santa line or Santa check-in station, however it ends up being, is not right next to where all.
It seemed like there was
congested.
people walking by in the line. It was just very confusing.
Right,
there. I was
right.
like, where am I going? Just
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
know.
So we don't want that again. Yeah, so we'll be certainly looking at how that can flow better. Also, the crafts were a little too close to the Taste of San Gabriel, creating that kind of blockade of congestion. Again, in theory, that was super far apart from each other, and then when you have like 1,000 people all in one space, it didn't work out. So we'll certainly be fixing that next year. Most definitely. Thank you. Yeah, so the only other caveat to the event is was it costly to do the lighting and some of those added items, so we'll either be looking for sponsorships for future years or finding other ways to make it a bit more cost effective. especially the lighting was quite costly. So we'll be trying to find creative ways to cut that down a bit more
It was lighting for the actual, on the Christmas.
for the stage area.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay, moving on to discussion item 4C, development of the 2024 annual work plan. Now that this item has come up on the agenda before, we were unable to make it to the last couple of meetings. But correct me if I'm wrong, there'd be 2 meetings regarding the work plan. This would be the first of 2 meetings.
So this would be the second of 2 meetings. So we had the initial discussion. Tonight's discussion would just be reviewing. Essentially, I've tried to capture as much of the amendments and thoughts from the previous meeting. So either the commission can choose to finalize everything or send us back with more edits, and then we'll bring you a more complete one next time.
Mhm. Okay. So at this point, commission members will review the draft 2024 work plan and make amendments as needed. And we'll ask any factual questions for staff to clarify the agenda. So I can start off. I did have a couple of questions since it seems like,
I apologize. I don't mean to stop you right in
Sure.
tracks. It looks like we did skip a public comment, so that I
We did.
apologize. We do have a public comment on agenda item B and C. So before we jump into that item, if
Just
Andrew,
go through, I'll make my comment all at the end
are
with
you
C.
sure? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay.
Great.
Thank you. So I should have asked if there were any public comments on that action item. And the time for public comment on that item is now closed. So now we'll move on to the work plan. If anyone has any questions to lead us off, otherwise I can get started. So it seems like the work plan is, for the most part, similar to the one that was put together for last year. I did see that there was maybe 1 or 2 items that were added on. And I apologize because I really should have brought my notes from the November meeting where we discussed this. It's been a couple of months, but I think some of the sort of the really good thinking that we did in November maybe didn't make it on to the agenda, to the work plan, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah, it's been so long, I don't have my notes as well, so it's.
I think you're right, Vice Chair. I think that I can see items that were added, but there may have been some that I think we were thinking of taking off.
Mhm.
And I didn't bring my notes either.
So what we could do to get us started in terms of discussions, maybe work through the work plan from 1 to 4 again, and
Okay.
see if there were items that, we had wanted to take off or amend or add to from our last discussion.
I forgot my homework, sorry.
If you're okay with it, we'll
You're
do
like-
the public comment now. Then that way you can also use that feedback as part of your discussion as well.
Good evening, Commission. I was going to comment on the tree lighting also. The Taste of San Gabriel, so I invited some foodie friends of mine. Luckily, they showed up way before I did because they left. They thought it was going to be like some of the cities that have Taste of the city. It's typically food, right? You can come and buy food, and I know we go to the one in San Pedro all the time. It's a big event. So maybe we should call it like sampling of San Gabriel or something like that instead of to kind of, or maybe just show that it'll be a sampling of food as opposed to people coming. It was really great that the mission did the tamales. I know it was kind of undercover because I was running around and I'm like, hey, where's all the tamales? Somebody said tamales. And then I finally found it, and it was really nice that, I've never been to the museum, so that was really nice. So as far as the work plan, I've spoken before about us having some youth ambassadors to this commission, and I really want to advocate for that because, we have them with the HERE Commission now. We have the 2 youth ambassadors with the HERE Commission, and they give a lot of good input as far as, like they're both from Gabrielino, I believe. I believe Erin is a senior, and I think Callie's she's a sophomore at Gabrielino. So they kind of give in the input, and I think that would kind of help if we could, advocate for commissioners, or actually, I think ambassadors for this committee to kind of like help bring in that high school group of age, in the community, because we don't seem to have any events for them. And that's kind of like, I always talk about, that's the fork in the road, right? You can go good or you can go bad, during those years, And I think if we did have some youth ambassadors to this committee, it would be kind of nice. And then I'll bring it up now because the Hair Commission, I think in April, either March or April, is going to put out the applications because their ambassadors are coming up to their end of their time, and so it might be a good time to maybe do an application for both of them, because I don't know if any of you seen the interviews from the Hair Commission from last year. These kids are amazing, and they were all from Gabrielino. I know Jackie Borja she kind of advocated for it, and a lot of them were from Gabrielino, but they seemed really amazing. I think they're really going to help to bring us, kind of tie it together, to bring in that youth, that teenage youth group to kind of participate in, some of the activities, or just help us maybe develop activities for that group to keep them from getting in trouble. And I know most of them spend most of their time on the social media, but, we want to get them out on the, come into the city and participate. That's all I have. Thank you.
I will say that I remember your public comment around that, and we did actually build that into the work plan. That would be item 1B, provide programs to residents aged 18 to 64 with an emphasis on teen programs. Actually, it's a new element of the work plan.
I seen it because it said 18 to 64, and I think it also said and teens.
Emphasis on teen programs.
Right, so maybe
It's a large age range, yes.
yeah, because the teens that I'm talking about are like the 13 to 18, right? Thank you.
And that's actually a good point, because you wouldn't consider 18-year-olds to be teenagers or young adults. So if we do want to focus on teen programming, maybe we should break that out into a different bullet point. I believe that comment came from me in November, which was, let's focus not on the 18 to 64, but really on that sort of age group that may not necessarily value the programming for seniors, who are a little bit, kind of in that 30 to 50 age range that we seem to not be targeting in terms of demographics. But certainly your point taken in terms of, teenagers are really from 12 up to 18 at this point, junior high and middle school, junior high and high school's crowd. There is also Work Plan 1C, where we will continue offering and expanding the internship program for youth to assist with translation services. And I believe the department did a very good job of advertising that internship to the high school. Don't know if they reached out to the middle school students, but that's another way for teenagers to engage with the city and provide feedback as well. Any comments about work plan objective 1A to 1D?
So just for staff clarification on the next revision, it'll be providing programs for residents between the age groups of 13 to 15, so that we're focusing on teens, and then 30 to 50. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact wording for 1D. I mean, I know it was November, but, and the other ones jog my memory, but this one, I don't remember what the basis was. Service liaison for events, the city council has requested be expanded or added.
Right. So I think this is where we had talked about July 4th events. So for instance, the council back in December approved, I suppose, $45,000 for the drone show. And it's sort of, it's under the, I would assume, the purview of Community Services Department to plan the July 4th event. And so the idea is, do we provide feedback on some of these items in terms of discussing the budget or programming or the location of the event? I think there was some discussion during the commission during the council meeting too about parking and about sponsorships. So, is that a role that we should, Is that something that we should be discussing, you know, some of these larger items? Or should we sort of just take a back seat on that and let the department bring us issues as they see fit?
No, I mean, we were just looking at each other, really.
No, I was reading. Actually, the city council has already voted to do the 4th of July plan. So I don't know that they need any more input from us, other than our staff will have to work on it, right?
Yeah,
So I-
I don't think, yeah, I agree. I don't know what more we can
Yeah, I think,
add.
I think we were asking that staff let us know before it happened.
that was the thing, yeah.
Yeah,
Rather than instead of
staff-
just getting reports afterwards.
Correct.
That's what we were asking. And I think under 1B, we might want to put a caveat with Andrew's suggestion about possible teen commissioners, just something to consider. I think it's a good idea. They have a different perspective of things, and they could probably bring some good ideas into the commission. So 1B dash
I think we
dash
were,
dash.
yeah. I think we agreed to get rid of 1A, didn't we?
We were going to get rid of 1B?
1A.
Sounds
Oh,
familiar.
1A, yeah, I
Yes.
think that was done, yeah, because that's really not under our purview, I don't believe.
Well, I think that it was something that we were talking about, but really the HERE Commission has really taken a driver's seat to health-related services and under their commission. So I think we can get rid of 1A.
I agree.
It's all coming back to me now. Not all of it.
So would the commission want to implement 2 youth ambassador positions or 1 youth ambassador position? For reference, the HERE Commission currently has 2.
I'd say 2.
2 would be nice.
I think so.
What does that mean in terms of a quorum then?
So the ambassadors are not voting members of the commission, so unfortunately they don't help with the quorum at all. But they do provide feedback, so we implement them as part of the commission, but when it comes time to vote, they don't have a vote at that time.
Strictly there for input, suggestions, but I think it's good.
Are we suggesting that the teenagers should be located in the city of San Gabriel, whether or not they attend to San Gabriel Unified School?
So that would be completely up to the commission. The HERE Commission, if I'm remembering correctly, it was both, which I was part of the process, so I should remember off the top of my head, but it is both individuals who reside in the city of San Gabriel and persons that attend school in San Gabriel.
I think that's appropriate. I think Andrew said they were both from Gabrielino, right? And I think that's,
It's open to all schools
right.
in San Gabriel.
But they need to be a resident and go to school here. So if they wanted to have one from the Mission.
Either or.
Yeah, either or.
The high school could be.
Sure.
Our high school girls could be.
Included. Exactly. Mission, high school, Gabrielino.
So either or in terms of the criteria?
Yeah, don't you think? Oh, you're saying either they have to be.
So they
Either a
live here but
resident
go to a different
Or go to
school?
school in San Gabriel. Because you have Gabrielino High School, but you also have San Gabriel Mission High School. I believe San Gabriel Christian has a high school as well, don't they? Or not San Gabriel Christian, the Academy.
But is that,
Broadway.
that might be Temple, is that San Gabriel though? Or is it on the border, Temple City and San Gabriel?
I'm not sure, but that's what I'm saying. If you're having high school students, then you still have private high schools in San Gabriel.
Oh, I think that they should be included, but
Sure.
I think it should also be someone who lives in the city, so they
Yeah, because
understand.
the here is the resident and they go to school here, right, man? Yeah,
Yeah.
so they meet both of those criteria. I think that's how it should be.
I think they should meet both of those criteria. Be a resident.
Yeah, I think San Gabriel Valley is interesting, sort of organizational body because there are so many cities. We have 4 square miles in the city of San Gabriel. People go to school in different places. So I think the criteria should be if you live in San Gabriel, regardless of which school you attend, because they're more likely to come over, I would imagine it's something where they have to be in person to be an ambassador. So if you live within the 4 square miles of San Gabriel, even if you go to a private school or a Catholic school, you should be able to participate.
Mhm.
You know, I believe the way the here does it is their residents, regardless of what school they go to.
That makes sense.
I just pulled up the eligibility that was on the application, so that way I wasn't trying to remember off of my very small memory. So the eligibility is as follows: must be 16 to 19 years old and live in the city of San Gabriel or the unincorporated area of LA County. So that's with a San Gabriel home address. So essentially, anything over 3,000, they don't technically live in the city, but their address will show up as San Gabriel.
Mhm.
And some of them do attend some of the San Gabriel Unified Schools. And then a minimum of a 1-year commitment, have transportation to meetings and events, and then youth ambassadors must not be paid employees of the city.
Okay.
So in terms of 1D, point taken about sort of what that item actually means. Do we want to narrow that a bit more in terms of scope, clarify?
I wonder if, I mean, I like the last sentence. The first sentence is kind of vague. And I think it was more of what we were trying to narrow it down to. But commission members to provide feedback and support for events before they go to city council for approval, or can we word it so that maybe events that staff have
Yeah, the wording is a little,
difficult?
yeah.
We pretty much do that now. I mean, we discuss things anyway.
But they're already
After the fact.
after the fact.
Well, not always.
Maybe they haven't gone up to city council, but the
Right.
budgets have already been talked about, the plan has already been talked about. We're just advised that it's
Well, yeah, because we're not elected officials, we're not.
correct,
We're just giving the suggestions and advising.
correct.
So I'm not sure why this is even relevant at this point. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying, could the wording be that we provide feedback on the event as a whole, budget, planning, before it's decided upon? The only way to do that is for staff to bring it here first,
Yeah, I was about to say, staff would have to provide all that for.
right?
So
Is that what we were talking about?
I believe so, because I think for some of these items, it was challenging to understand how we would be effective at providing feedback if a decision was already being made. You know, for instance, for July 4th event, and that's an event that's organized by your department, I would imagine that it would come under our purview as commissioners. If we could provide some commentary around that. Obviously, it's sort of dependent on how do you want us to help you when it comes down to it, because we're advisors. As Commissioner Cabot mentioned, we're not elected officials, so we're advisors to mayor, the city council, your department. So how would you like to use our services? For us to be effective, I think that we need to see some of these items before they go to council so that we can provide effective commentary, or at least discuss it as a group.
Sure. So the event items don't typically go to council. I think this year's been a bit unusual for them to go to council and the way that they have, just because of the large budget items that have been attached to them, and not during a typical budget cycle where it gets approved. So in this case, we certainly can take those prior to council. I'll use the Here Commission as a good example. There's an item that will be going to council for social services that we've presented to the Here Commission to get their feedback, which will then help how we've then present it to council and or make any adjustments before it reaches council. So we can do something similar to that for special events. I don't anticipate, unless we receive additional feedback from council, that we'll need to take separate items to council for events. Most likely, all of the upcoming ones for the new fiscal year the budget item will be submitted to council for approval as part of the budget process. We do typically break it down in line items when it goes to council. So, $4,000 for 4th of July, $2,000 for Play Day, whatever it might be. But they're not necessarily, they're approving the whole budget item, not just the the event itself, if that makes sense. So what we can do is potentially bring 2 or 3 of the events at one time, give the general information, give what we're thinking the event will include, and then we can get the feedback from the commission at that time, if that makes sense. I think if we try to provide you too many details, we may not be able to adequately get you that information in the timely manner that would be effective for you to provide the feedback. But we can certainly, we do have an event that's coming up that we're naming Culture Fest, that's replacing Surf's Up, so that would be a good one to bring to the commission, since it's completely different than anything we've offered, and say, these are the elements that we're thinking about. So it would just be providing the outline to the commission prior to staff implementing the event, or beginning full implementation of planning the event, if that works for the commission.
I think that gets to the gist of what we were talking about. Any other comments about section 1? All right, hearing none, let's move on to section 2, connect the entire community to enhance quality of life.
I think we were also going to take out A in this one as well. B as well. I think B, we had talked about last year during the work plan, and that was that we would, instead of doing a community services department day, we would continue to staff the community services booth at the events sponsored by the community services department as commissioners.
Right, I agree. I think, 2B would be redundant if we continue to staff the booth at every single event. Any other comments regarding section 2?
So C, we were going to continue with that, with C. Okay. So right now we have A and B for 2, right? Okay.
And have we made any progress in terms of connecting with the Garvey School District to see how we could better partner with them on using that space?
Not at this time. We were just waiting for the completion of the work plan, then we'll jet out with it.
Okay, so moving to section 3, embrace and celebrate community diversity. There is just 2 bullet points here: partner and collaborate with various cultural and interfaith organizations to assist in the development and implementation of events and services. Examples include partnering with the HERE Commission, the Native American community, and interfaith groups. And it sounds like there's a Culture Fest now. Is that under this bullet point as an example of how we could better partner with cultural and faith-based organizations?
Most definitely.
Any idea when it's going to take place?
June 13th. Yeah, Thursday, June 13th in the Mission District.
Okay.
You'll be getting a call from us soon.
Great.
Moving on to section 4, unless there are any comments about section 3. Section 4, develop innovative resources and tools to achieve our mission.
A, we collected survey data. So A, we've been working on. I thought we did a pretty good job last year collecting, having surveys done and collecting data. So I would like to keep that. I don't know if the wording is still okay, but I think it's a goal.
Agreed.
And I think, Chair, Shay was the one that took the lead on the social media side. Utilizing social platforms. I think we may have talked about it a little bit the last time, but I can't remember our notes, but it still stays on our plan.
Yeah, I agree. I think for that, we were trying to target different members of the community with, using social media that's appropriate for that community. So WeChat, for instance, for more Asian-based populations. I think that's an important item. For 4C, cross-promoting programs through various city departments. For example, utilizing police department's neighborhood watch to disseminate information. I'm not sure, is this not happening already in terms of cross-promotion of programs?
Can you answer that?
So we don't do it very frequently with the neighborhood watch. We do lean on our community partners often to help disseminate information. We do lean on our economic development team, I think increasingly more frequently, to disseminate information to the businesses and the nonprofits that are within their kind of database. For example, Right SG, we're going to be sending out a letter in partnership with their department to get more information to the businesses, so that way it's bringing more people hopefully to them as well as helping patrons get to their businesses. So those are the examples that I have now.
I did see on one of the council agenda from either December or January where there was a grant given to the police department for enhanced bike lanes around Live Oak and Del Mar. I don't know if it's under the purview of the Community Services Department to think about bike lanes and how people are able to better access bike lanes. I certainly have a personal interest in that. So it'd be good to, if we could get more involved in terms of how we can improve mobility for residents who are not interested in using a car every time we have to go somewhere. Ride SGV has been great, I think, and in allowing us to use more public transit. I think, sort of promoting more bike usage, whether that's regular bikes or e-bikes or what have you, is definitely a step in the right direction. So if there are other departments who lean into that area of policy, I think that might be something that we could consider as a commission.
Yeah. So that typically falls under Public Works. I'm not extremely familiar with that agenda item, unfortunately. But if the grant was issued to to PD, then it would be Public Works that would be working with them. But we can certainly see if they are able to provide additional information to the commission as well.
And for item 4D, recommend that City Council approve the release of an RFP for a new registration software during the upcoming fiscal year. This is a personal favorite of mine. Do we have any RFPs? Have we done any cost analysis?
We did. I just got one quote from one of the leading vendors in the industry. So we're kind of using that as the bar for what we anticipate it costing in the new fiscal year. It is to also merge the efforts of both Community Services and Mission Playhouse. So that way it's on one platform. So that certainly increases the cost with it, but obviously it's additional clients that are utilizing it. So it does make sense that it comes at an additional cost. So now we're just trying to see, is it worth that additional cost to merge them together? It didn't come in quite costly.
Would it, can we expect that this new program is released before the summer registration starts? Probably.
Unfortunately, it wouldn't. If it gets approved by council, it would be July 1, and then, that's when the budget would hit, would be July 1, and then we would be ready to release an RFP soon after. So it wouldn't be until probably 3 months after that we'd be able to get moving with the vendor, and then it would take several months for us to actually release it to the public. So unfortunately, it wouldn't hit by summer. We are starting to do a different registration process for swim, where you're essentially registering to register, so that way you're
Yeah.
not waiting for a long
Queuing
line.
for a queue.
Correct. So unfortunately, luckily you don't have to come in person to register, and you will have a very, in theory, a nice, simple registration process once you're in person. And you can sign up for your appointment time online or in person, since our system can handle that. So we're hoping that will alleviate some of the frustration during the summer, until we can get to that point.
So basically, you can go online to reserve a slot to come in
Correct.
to make the payment and
Mhm.
do the registration for swim especially. And in terms of summer camps, general summer activities, when will that information be released?
Summer camp registration is taking place early this year, in April, I believe, and then I would need to follow up with the exact date. And then summer class registration will take place May 11th or 13th. So we tried to keep them as separate as possible to give parents and families enough breathing room in between.
Any comments about this?
Is it going to be the same vendor that maybe Alhambra uses for their registration?
I don't know who the city of Alhambra uses off the top
I
of
don't
my head,
remember the name.
unfortunately.
Off the top of my head, but it seemed a popular one because I'm on their system and the San Marino, and they both use the same one, and it's
Okay.
really, it's nice.
Yes, the city of San Marino registration software is the one that we've been in
Is it?
communication with, just to get a ballpark
Okay,
figure for
so
now.
yeah, okay, that one's,
Unfortunately, nothing can be finalized until we release the RFP, but at least to get a general idea of where we're looking at.
yeah, no, it just helps for me since I've used their system, I know how it is, and it's the same as Alhambra's as well, so it's the same system, I believe.
Did you say the services for registration would also be shared with the Playhouse for booking for tickets?
So unfortunately, it wouldn't be for ticketing. Most registration softwares don't have the ability to do reserved seating, which would be essential for the Mission Playhouse.
Okay.
It would be more utilized for potentially concessions, parking fees, as well as the actual booking of the Playhouse. So our
Oh,
Playhouse in
nice.
particular is much more rental-based than actually producing our own shows. So the goal would be to make it more streamlined for the customer and for the staff on the back end, to have one centralized location where you can find all of the documents and payment processing, really for both ends, rather than having multiple systems kind of integrating into one.
Okay.
Could we use that system too for, say, the haunted house or when people are lining up to take a picture of Santa Claus? Okay, so it'd be the same system. I mean, I think it serves so many different purposes. I hope there's budget for this item. Okay, so any other questions about the work plan this upcoming year?
It just came, I was just thinking it through on my own. Initially, when I, interviewed to be on the commission, one of my main things was trying to get programs for people with special needs. And I'm looking at 1B, and I'm wondering if I could add something there for that. But in my research that I've done so far, it doesn't seem like that's a big city thing. A lot of it's done through vendors and third parties, so I don't know how much traction I could get. I don't know if that's something we could add to that, and then I can kind of get an idea, and then, either see if I can proceed forward with it, or just say nay on it.
Would you mind just refreshing exactly what you were looking for?
For like activities for children with special needs.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's no programs for that. I tried to register my oldest son, for like the basketball
Mm-hmm.
over at was it Marshall Park, where the school's at.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And yeah, it was. I had called previously and I asked, hey, my son's, he's autistic. Is this something that he could be? And like, oh yeah, the instructor will see it and do this and that. But when I got there, the instructor was just like full on. You're catching up with these kids here, and you're doing this and that. So 10 minutes in, he couldn't do it and he's throwing up and it was just really bad. So there wasn't that understanding of,
Yeah.
you can't do that. Like, it's different playing field pretty much. So yeah, I would like to see if I could find more programs for that where it's kind of just focused on them. Maybe even it's just kind of hanging out because their social skills, a lot of them are really bad, especially my son. So just any type of program for them to kind of get together and, whether it's sports, hanging out, going, camping. I've even asked Boy Scouts. Not all of them, like, as soon as I tell them, they kind of go, I don't think so. So he can't even really do that. So it's kind of tough. So I want to try and find something, but it's really hard unless you're, a private company who's going to charge. So it's, yeah, I don't know. I'm still kind of researching it. So I don't know if that's something we could put on. And then, like I said, once I research and I see, okay, maybe it's not feasible or something, maybe I can just say X-nay on that.
Well, I certainly appreciate that feedback because all of our programs should be inclusive, and if we're not meeting that need, then we need to certainly make that change. So if that ever happens in the future, hopefully not, please let us know so then we can reach out to our vendors. In that case in particular, they're an amazing instructor, but they certainly need improvement in that particular area to be able to make adjustments when something isn't going to how they expect things to go. Our internal programs, I can say, typically are much more flexible and can meet the needs of more youth depending on where their needs lie. So we certainly expect our third-party contract classes to be able to make the same accommodations. So I do apologize. As far as adding in additional programs and services for persons with disabilities, we can certainly start small and implement 1 or 2 programs and then see how that takes off. It is a bit more difficult from a staff perspective to do very robust programming because depending on the disability, I want to be sure that staff have adequate training to be able to successfully meet the needs of the participant, not what they think is meeting the needs of the participant. So that would be the only differentiation.
Yeah, no, the scale from one child to another is completely different, and that's why I think a lot of third-party companies are better capable of handling it because they are trained in that. So again, like I said, this is the research I've done, I've noticed cities don't really have one focus with it. Like AYSO, they have a program, VIP program for children with disabilities, and that's a great program. But again, it's not through the city; it's through that program. I just found out recently there's another one that does baseball. I can't remember the organization, but it's in. I know Temple City and South Pass have it, so I would have to look more into that and see what is it they're doing there that we can't do here, or maybe try and implement here, or something like that. And, it's really rough, or just beginning stages, I guess, really, and trying to get more clarification on it on my end.
This jogs my memory a little bit, and I don't know if it's tangential, but we had talked about a resource person as a potential ask for the budget, someone who could coordinate and do extra research on these types of questions, just because we understand that staff, you guys have a lot on your plate already.
So that does tie into an item that we'll be going to council for linkage services, who will also be providing health and ed lectures, who will also be providing case management services, essentially. So if a person walks in the door or has a phone call and they need mental health resources, or they need additional nutritional services or affordable housing, this person would be able to not just give them a pamphlet and say, here's the resources, figure it out. They would be finding the one that actually fits their need and then helps them. So assuming that is approved by council, then that would be implemented and tie in, I think, to this as well. And then staff would be looking for third parties to provide classes or services to meet the needs of persons with disabilities, in particular to address that item that would be added on to the work plan.
I have a couple questions. I like his suggestion. I think that we definitely need to add some type of program for those with special needs. And a couple things, would you be willing to work with Matt or somebody in the office to give them some ideas on what could be done? I mean, that's a whole different ballgame. If you don't know
Yeah.
anything about it, you, excuse me, you can probably make suggestions on what would work. Again, I agree with Matthew. It needs to be, start out with small groups. It can be a very small group, and they're probably more comfortable with that. Can it be, does it have to be sports? Can it be something like crafts or painting?
Crafts, or even just somewhere where they can hang out and just
Right,
bond, because like my son,
he doesn't have that.
he doesn't have it at all, never.
Well, we have the space at the community services room. If you have somebody willing to bring just 3 or 4 or 5 kids even to start and have some crafts that they could do that would be interesting for them. Maybe watch a simple movie, something together, have some popcorn, something that they can bond and do it together and not feel that they're different from everybody else. Is that what you're looking for? Well, I would suggest that you work with somebody from Matthew's office, possibly, now, does he have a special ed teacher in the school system?
Yeah, I would be reaching out to them.
Okay, reach out to them. I'm sure they have some suggestions on what to do. Maybe you could take some simple field trips, like down to the library when they have reading time together. It doesn't have to be a huge show.
No, does it?
It just has to be something they do together that they feel part of a group. And I think that if you worked with them, worked with the special ed teacher, worked with somebody in Matthew's office, you might be able to come up with a good plan for that and get it started. And he might know a few kids that would be willing to do it with him, right? Do you think? They're in town? That's just, but I like David's idea. I think that we need to, we're covering senior citizens, we're covering high school, we're covering everybody in between, but those with special needs. And they really need as much as anybody, if not more.
Yeah, no, for sure, I'd be willing to work with anyone. I already have, plenty of years of my experience with my own son, so I have an idea of how it is, so.
You just need a place and a way to coordinate it together.
Yeah.
Well, community services has the space in the building. They could use a couple of tables there. The staff is wonderful about figuring out creative ideas such as crafts or games. Even if they have some simple board games to do together, that's a fun thing too.
Maybe even doing like for swim, one separate class just for, special needs.
That's a good idea, yeah. Not that they want to feel like they're being rejected, but they also want to feel accepted with certain people. Yep.
So we're recommending that we include an item 1B1, Roman numeral 1, to be inclusive of neurodiverse students in the community.
Yes, I think that's what we agree on. It sounds like David's going to take the lead on that, right? There you go. That's yours. You're an owner.
Anything else regarding the work plan? Okay. Now with that, we are moving to commission reports.
Before we move on to that, did the commission want to approve it with the amendments, or do you want to see it added and then approve it at the next meeting?
I think I would like to see it. That way it gives us a chance to go back and review our notes and come prepared next month,
We can do that, yeah.
Sounds good.
and then finalize it next,
Make sure we didn't miss
Me.
nothing else as well.
yes.
Okay.
Sounds good. And since if we are going to update the agenda, the work plan, then is there a place where we can include the resource person that is being proposed for the budget? Somewhere, either under 4 or under item 1?
I'll also send the staff report that was presented to the HERE Commission as well, so you have that as a quick reference, but we can certainly add that in here.
Can we move on to the commission reports? So each commissioner may address the Community Services Commission and public on matters of general information and/or concern. This is also the time for commissioners to report on conferences and/or meetings they have attended. Starting with Commissioner Cabot.
I have no report to make. I was out of commission for about 2.5 months.
Moving on to Commissioner Barantes.
No, I have nothing to add.
I can say that I have nothing to add beyond the comments that we've provided for the various events that we attended since November. I don't know if this is a place to ask it, but it would be interesting to know if there was anything different coming to the Lunar New Year event, apart from it being a 2-day program now. And I think there's a new sponsor too. It's 1430KZN, I think. You know, with summer programming, I know there's always so much going on during the summer. You know, anything that's new to our process, any new activities, events that, you know, we can provide comments on in advance, that would be good. But apart from that, no other comments from myself. Vice Chair, she is absent. So last but not least, Chair Huerta.
I have not. I have been like in a cave for the past 2 months, so I have nothing to add.
Okay, so we're moving on to staff comments. Staff members have the opportunity to address the commission and public on matters of general information and/or concern.
Good evening, Commissioners. I can give a brief update on the Lunar Lantern Festival. So it is a 2-day event, and it is sponsored by KAZN, which is the group actually that produced the event last year as well. So it is a Chinese broadcast company that is providing the event, and we are working closely with them. The event will include the primary festival will be taking place in the Mission Playhouse parking lot, so it'll be a little different layout than our other events have been. Mission Drive will be closed from Broadway to Santa Anita, and there will be, the kids zone will be located on Mission Drive, and then there will be some police booths and that sort of thing also on Mission Drive. There will be a small carnival that will be held closer to the Hayes House in the Mission Playhouse parking lot. And it is Saturday, February 17th from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Sunday, February 18th from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. So happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Is there a schedule of events for the day from like 10 to?
I don't have, are you talking about like stage performances and that
like
sort of
what's
thing?
maybe happening throughout the days?
Let me connect with our producer and see if they have that firmed up and can provide that so that we could present that as part of our social media presence as well. So we don't have that currently.
Okay.
They've been working on that.
Why 2 days? Not that I'm objecting, I'm just surprised. It seems like a lot.
KAZN wanted 2 days for the vendors that are coming out. It's a lot of setup for them to do for just 1 day, and so they were really pushing for 2 days. So, yeah.
Is it going to be the same thing for both days, kind of?
Yes.
Okay, so if you miss one day, it'll be,
The stage performances will be different, and we will have a kickoff ceremony on Saturday. There will be dignitaries and such here, lion dance, dragon dance. I do know those two things will be happening at the beginning of the event on Saturday.
Okay.
And that the lion dance and dragon dance will not be happening on Sunday. We are focusing on more of the Lantern Festival. We're holding this towards the tail end of the Lunar New Year celebration, and so this is focusing more on the Lantern celebration, so there will be some cool photo ops and a cool lantern. We're getting, there's a group, Shilai Temple is a Buddhist temple, and they're helping provide some large inflatable lanterns that will be really cool photo ops.
Okay.
And then there is Taiwanese Tourism Bureau is providing lanterns that kids can make. They're like paper lanterns that they can fold and make into lanterns, and that will be on a limited basis, though. So I think there's 800 that they'll be providing. So.
I attended the Monterey Park Lunar New Year Festival last weekend, I believe, and I think it was also sponsored by KAZN. Somehow
I
they
think
were,
theirs was World Journal.
World Journal
Journal.
versus KAZN.
Yeah.
World Journal has never sponsored the event for San Gabriel.
No, we were initially going to work with World Journal, and then they had a conflict. They were doing the Monterey Park event and were challenged to do both, their event and our event.
They were able to get, I think, Disney to sponsor the Monterey Park Festival. At least there was a section of the festival that was it was sectioned off, and it was decorated with Disney materials, and people could take photos, and pretty long line to get in. It was free, so it was a photo opportunity for families. Might be something to sort of tap into next year. I'm not really sure how Monterey Park was able to get Disney to sponsor one of the.
Someone knows someone.
Someone
knows
knows someone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other staff comments, reports? Okay. So we'll move to the last item, which is adjournment. The next regular Community Services Commission meeting will be held on Monday, March 4th at 6:30 p.m. Information regarding matters to be considered at each meeting will be available on the Friday before the Community Services Commission meeting on the city's website at www.sangabrielcity.com. This regular meeting is now adjourned at 7:59 p.m.